Hello, hello. Attempt two. If you're watching the initial stream, apologies, it cut out, so I've been offline for about 10, 15 minutes, something like that. I'm going to just wait till I get somebody watching or somebody commenting to make sure that I'm back live again. Unfortunately, all the comments that were on the initial stream that I uploaded have gone, so yeah, I missed out on a page or two of those, so probably no offence to anyone who's suggested anything, but yeah, bear with me just for one moment. I'm just trying to. Don't seem to be having too much luck here, I'm afraid. Just trying to see if I can find this stream live, or if this, I'm not sure this one's going out. Right, it looks like we're good, actually. It looks like we're good. Ah, yes. Thank you, guys. Tivatap, he's back. Was, how long did you sit there talking to yourself, Gossip? Do you know what was? I caught it straight away because it was my computer. So I was looking at the webcam and it just, the screen went blank and I couldn't see myself anymore. Ruben, he returns. Yeah. Apologies about that, everyone. Thanks very much for sticking with us. I lost a good page and a half or 2 pages of comments on the previous video, unfortunately. So yeah, if you'd written any comments or anything like that, be that regarding White Joshua, be that regarding Selby Al Heyman, or just be that about my Chinese meal that I'm about to enjoy in half an hour or so, please do rewrite them. I'm not anticipating any more cutouts, so I should be able to get to them. Annoyingly, on my screen, I can see how many people are watching live, and there's only 4 people watching live now. I forget how many there were on the last stream, but it was well into the double figures. So annoyingly, there's probably 6 or 7 people watching live who've missed out. But yeah, unfortunately, these things happen, I guess. Anyway, I'm unsure. I think the initial stream will still go up as a video, despite the fact I didn't upload it or close it or anything like that. So we can always go back to it. But unfortunately, Ruben says he thinks I should get a beef chow mein. I think that's a good start, Ruben. But he prefers chicken and chips. Decent. I'm sure Tyson Fury would get both, but unfortunately, I don't have his budget. Anyway, so yeah, that was to summarise the first 20 minutes of what we were discussing. Lee Selby's gone to join Al Heyman. We were discussing who else was going to join him, and I was kind of saying that my opinion was changing slightly on White versus Joshua, and I'm viewing it as a real tight matchup. So yeah, those were the 2 things I wanted to discuss there. Now, the other 2 fights I wanted to come on to briefly, actually, were from across the pond. Mayweather, Berto, and also Stiverne versus Luis Ortiz. I'll deal with Stiverne first. I'm just having a look at the chat, see if I've missed anything. Wall says shrimp and broccoli over rice is my favourite Chinese meal. Good sell. Ruben, he said that White will KO Joshua with ease and that he'd do the same to Price. Lol. We shall see. We shall see. As I said, I'm still making Joshua a favourite. I just think the timing's better for him. I think he's a more technical, disciplined fighter than White. But yeah, as it gets closer, I'm becoming more and more tied over it. Anyway, Stiverne versus Luis Ortiz. So this fight on and Walsh said he agreed with Ruben that Johnson was a credible opponent simply due to the fact he went 12 rounds with Vitali, who had one of the best KO rates in heavyweight history. Yeah, Kevin Johnson was definitely a credible opponent. He just didn't perform credibly. But yeah, you can't take anything away from Joshua or for Eddie Hearn for that. But speaking of credible heavyweights, Stiverne versus Luis Ortiz, there's two credible heavyweights. Now, the fight was pretty much reported as basically like a done deal on Boxing Scene. I then saw some coverage with Bermain Stiverne on Bayloric TV, where he was speaking to Stiverne, and apparently that fight is a long way off being made. So who knows what to believe? But that is a real interesting matchup. Now, Luis Ortiz is a guy I've been following for some time, and let me tell you, he is a real exciting talent. I guess the difficulty with Luis Ortiz is he's in his late 30s, he's coming off a drug ban, and he still hasn't fought anyone of any note whatsoever. I mean, we talk about Anthony Joshua and Dillian White having bad resumes. Luis Ortiz's resume is a new level of bad. He really hasn't fought anyone whatsoever. But he's looked so devastating in the fights that he has had. Obviously, he's got that Cuban amateur school background. He seems to have fast hands. He seems to have real good timing. And he seems to have excellent power. So I'm really rating Luis Ortiz. Bermain Stiverne is a huge step up. I mean, look, Bermain Stiverne was terrible last time out. You know, he looked appalling against Deontay Wilder. But at his best, Bermain Stiverne is a solid enough fighter. You know, he beat Chris Arreola twice, who, you know, Chris Arreola looks poor these days, but he's at least a sort of respectable yardstick. And Bermain Stiverne beat him up twice. So, yeah, I mean, Bermain Stiverne is a big step forward. And I view that as a 50-50 matchup. I would probably be inclined to say that Luis Ortiz will beat Bermain Stiverne. And I know a lot of people watching this maybe don't even know who Luis Ortiz is, but for me, this is a guy with serious upside who is going to force his way to the top 5, top 6 of the heavyweight division. And, we could see him in some big fights. Fury, Wilder, Joshua, Klitschko. I mean, for me, this is a guy going in the right direction. Now, Bermain Stiverne, based on what he's done, even despite the appalling performance against Deontay Wilder, I think it's very hard to have Bermain Stiverne out of the top 10 in the heavyweight division. For me, I'd probably have him somewhere between sort of 5th and 8th. I think he brings some attributes to the table. The Chris Arreola form is solid, you know, unspectacular, but solid. And I still think that he's an average yardstick. I think if Luis Ortiz goes through it, especially if Luis Ortiz looks as devastating as he's done in previous fights, and we know Bermain Stiverne's got an excellent chin, that could be a very interesting fight. And you know, coming off such a hard loss, and as a guy who appears sometimes to be a bit overweight and a bit lazy and lackadaisical, I'm inclined to think that Luis Ortiz may well get the job done in this matchup. So for me, that's a real interesting fight. I know Luis Ortiz was looking at the Bryant Jennings fight before that, so he's really on path to face somebody who's someone in the heavyweight division. We'll have to see if Bermain Stiverne, you know, does take the fight. He feigned ignorance really on Bayloric TV, and he made it clear that the fight was still some way off happening. So yeah, who knows what the actual picture is there? But for me, that's a very interesting fight. Let me have a look at the chat. Ruben, I also said that White will. Oh yeah, we've gone there. Ruben says it wasn't the same Kevin Johnson, and Wall says Wilder better hope Stiverne wins, or his resume will look even more pathetic. Yeah, I mean that's a good comment actually, because Stiverne is Wilder's only win, really, isn't it? I think he's 33-0 with 1 win, and that's Bermain Stiverne. So if Bermain Stiverne was to get trounced by Luis Ortiz, who doesn't even have 1 win, any sort of level, then yeah, probably wouldn't look too good. Whilst Ariola was bragging about he was training 5 days a week during his last camp and actually doing road work, that he has been a legitimate heavyweight for so long is an indictment on the division. Yeah, although I think we're now seeing the point where, for me, Chris Ariola isn't in the top 20 in my heavyweight rankings. You know, I could name 25 to 30 heavyweights I would rank above Chris Ariola. And you're right, I mean, constantly he was there or thereabouts in the heavyweight division. And for me, there's some good guys coming through. You know, you've got guys like Tyson Fury, Bryant Jennings, Deontay Wilder, who are nearer the top of the sport, who weren't that highly rated 2 or 3 years ago. And to my eye, you've got some good prospects coming through, you know. Because obviously from England alone, we've got Joshua White, Hughie Fury, etc. But even in the States, you know, there's you know, globally, guys like Joseph Parker, Lucas Brown, the American George Arias. You know, there's some interesting fighters in the heavyweight division right now, which is good to know, and hopefully is a sign of better things to come. Anyway, I've been rambling on now for 30, 40 minutes with an unintended break in the middle. Let me talk about the main event here, Mayweather versus Berto. Now, let me say, I know this is pay-per-view in the States. I wonder whether this should be pay-per-view on Sky in the UK. It wouldn't surprise me if it was pay-per-view for Sky, because their model at present seems to be as much pay-per-view as possible. But I will not be watching this fight if it's on pay-per-view, because I'm someone, you know, I enjoy my sleep. I struggle with the late night American boxing. I struggle to keep my eyes open, put simply. And, you know, like for me, Mayweather Berto is just a really uncompetitive fight. Berto is you know, quite. He's fast, he's athletic, he's powerful, he's an entertaining fighter, but he's quite easy to outbox. He's quite easy to hit. You know, he's susceptible to taking a lot of punishment. For me, like, you know, Mayweather has beaten. People talk about Mayweather's resume, right? Mayweather's beaten De La Hoya, Mosley, Pete Ricky Hatton, Pete Canelo, Miguel Cotto, widely regarded pound for pound #2, Manny Pacquiao. Yeah, he's fought a lot of different styles. He's fought fighters from Zab Judah's slick, fast style. Marcus Maidana's come forward, overwhelming style. Yeah, he's been there. He's got a T-shirt. He fought the pound for pound #2 last time out and was thoroughly dominant. For me, the only fight that would have really been entertaining would be if he came up against a young fighter who was on the way up. A Brook, a Furman, a Khan. You know, for me, that's a set. Those are sellable fights. Andre Berto, I just see him as an old guy. I don't see him in the top 10 of the welterweight division. I don't really even see him in the top 15 of the welterweight division, to be completely frank. And I don't think he's got any way of beating Floyd Mayweather. I mean, I guess in boxing anything can happen, and the guy's always got to punch his chance. But for me, it's not a fight that really gets the pulse racing. You know, there's just so many better fighters out there, and it's one of those things. I mean, in hindsight, it would actually be quite disappointing if Berto did even have success in the fight, because, you know, it would destroy all the form lines, wouldn't it? It would bring everything into question if Berto has any success against Mayweather. And you could see this. I mean, we always talk about Floyd stoppages, and they never seem to come through. But you could see this being a very dominant performance from Floyd Mayweather. And you could see Floyd just hitting and not getting hit. And, you know, really, really, really showing the difference in class quite possibly here. And I'm sure Floyd will fight again. I'm sure it won't be his final fight. I'm sure fight number 50 will be a big occasion. But for me, this fight, it's a waste. You know, Floyd's got so few fights left. There's so few occasions like this, and it could have been a really exciting event. It could have been you know, a big time, and you know, it's coming to be a disappointing fight. So, being honest with you, I won't be staying up late to watch this fight. I certainly won't be paying pay-per-view for it. Yeah, it's just one that doesn't fill me with any excitement. And for me, there's no storyline, there's no dynamic. Yeah, I never thought Manny Pacquiao had a chance against Floyd. At least you're thinking, how will Floyd deal with the speed? How will Floyd deal with the furious combinations? You're not really getting that with Berto. I mean, Berto just isn't competitive, I guess. Look at the chat. Walsh wouldn't pay $5 towards Mayweather Berto. They want $75 over here. No thanks. Yeah, spot on. Richie. Oh, good point, Richie. I didn't spot that. O2 card in UK, same day with Joshua and White on the bill. So it could well be a double header pay-per-view. That makes so much sense, Richie, because in fact, if you don't mind, sir, I'm probably going to steal that and do a separate video on that, because I think that's a really interesting subject. Because Joshua, despite all the fanfare and all the hype and all the glory and celebrity around him, he's too early in his career, really, and he's, you know, he doesn't have the sort of level to be headlining pay-per-views. So what better way to get Joshua effectively headlining a pay-per-view than selling it in on a Mayweather night? You know, that's a really interesting suggestion. Niall says Marquez. I need a bit more than that, Niall. What do you mean, Marquez? Walsh says 22-year-old Canelo is not peak Canelo. We are now seeing Canelo enter his prime. Yeah, okay, fair comment. Ruben, what fight would you rather pay for? Mayweather versus Berto or Belly versus Cleverly? 3. It's an interesting one because, as you know, I'm a real, well, maybe you don't know, but I'm a massive Nathan Cleverly fan. I always have been. I've got huge loyalty to Cleverly. I guess Floyd Mayweather is going to be a historic fight, though, isn't it? Yeah, this is the thing. I'm not going to stay up for it. I'm not going to be sitting there blurry-eyed at 4:30 in the morning drinking coffee trying to stay up. I'm not going to be selling out pay-per-view, but it is a historic occasion, isn't it? Like, he's going to break Ty Marciano's record. You know, he is the top fighter on the planet. Some would say the top fighter of all time. You got to watch him. So I guess I would regretfully side with Mayweather. Walsh would rather light his wallet on fire. Richie, Golovkin versus Lemieux and Cotto versus Canelo. Big risk and can't see the buys getting past 700k. I think, Richie, I think what I'm saying is Triple G versus Lemieux and Cotto versus Canelo are already pay-per-views. I'm not sure if Richie is saying, he's saying that with those, okay, what Richie is saying is given the fact that Triple G versus Lemieux and Cotto Canelo are on pay-per-view, he'd be surprised if Mayweather Berto does more than 700. I think it will do more than 700. I think it will do around the million mark. And the reason I do is because they sold, I think, 4.2 million for Pacquiao. And I think that whole event will have brought so many more fans to Floyd Mayweather. And I think so many people tune in to watch Floyd who aren't even boxing fans. I mean, let me put it this way, Richie. I think there'll be people who pay pay-per-view for that who won't even know that Triple G and Lemieux is happening. They probably won't even know that Triple G exists. Yeah, I think Mayweather has kind of transcended. So I do think he'll do a million. I don't think he's got anything like the numbers that he's done in the past, but I think he probably knew that. Walsh is saying Cotto Canelo will do more than a million buys. Yeah, I think you're right. Triple G Lemieux, I think, is going to struggle. I think that's really going to struggle. Oh yeah, going back to my earlier question, I'm not sure if anyone commented this on the first stream, but if you know the bookies odds for White versus Joshua, could you please comment those? I'd be interested to discuss that. I could see Triple G Lemieux doing like 300, 400. I could see Mayweather Berto doing, say, between 900 and 1.2. And I think Cotto Canelo will probably do like 1 to 1.2. I wouldn't be amazed if Cotto Canelo actually does more than if Cotto Canelo does more than Mayweather Berto, but we'll have to see. I don't think the numbers are going to be released. I heard them talking about this from the Boxing Voice the other day, and I think they said that the numbers are not going to be released anymore unless it's like record breaking. So we may or may not find out. Richie makes another very good point, which he goes, Groves is on the card and Sky Sports loves Groves. Yeah, Groves Badu Jack for a world title. Actually, when we're on the subject, we'll talk about that just briefly. And you're spot on as well, Richie. Again, now we talk about it, it's definitely going to be pay-per-view, isn't it? Joshua White, Groves in a world title fight, Floyd Mayweather. That's going to be a 20 quid pay-per-view. Eddie Hearn. He's going to do, he's going to do Kell Brook Chavez pay-per-view. It's on the same night as Klitschko Fury as well. Like, it's smart how he's getting these pay-per-views out, isn't it? But anyway, yeah. Groves Badu Jack. It's a fight that Groves should win. It's a fight that a year, 18 months ago, Groves would have been 1-3, 1-4 on to win. Badu Jack, we've seen him sparked out horribly in the first round by Derek Edwards. We know George Groves is a very, very good puncher indeed. It shouldn't be an overly tough fight for Groves historically. But as we know, recently, Groves has looked absolutely horrific. I mean, since the second loss to Carl Frotz, and Carl Frotz, he was joking, obviously, but when he said George Groves is finished, he's been cobra'd. I mean, maybe there is some truth that after such a heavy knockout loss, George Groves won't be the same again. He looked poor against Christopher Rebrasse, albeit Rebrasse being a tough, durable opponent. But he looked worse than average against Dennis Douglas, who's a blown-up light middleweight with limited capability. Conversely, Badu Jack is coming off a career-high performance, doing a real job on Anthony Durrell. So the momentum has shifted. It's now become a very, very tight fight. For me, Groves is a chin concern, and Groves also has a stamina concern. And the way Badu Jack fights, the way he comes forward and can kind of push opponents back, he could be one to test Groves' stamina. So it could be one where if Groves doesn't knock him out in the first few rounds, the tide is going to turn and Badu Jack will start to come into it. Nevertheless, I'm picking George Groves. I just think he's a more skillful, refined opponent with slightly more tools. Ross completely disagrees with me. Casual fans hated the Floyd versus Manny fight. None of them will buy the next fight. That's one way of looking at it. I just wonder if the whole event raised the profile of boxing and the profile of Floyd Mayweather to such a level and brought so many people to the sport who hadn't been involved before that will have a knock-on effect. But you make a fair point. Whilst Groves has looked bad since the Frotz losses, absolutely. Ruben, regardless of the 2 losses on Groves, I still see him being one of the best. Stamina and chin though, Ruben. Stamina and chin. Those are the 2 problems. Niall, I reckon Groves will regain confidence in this fight and push on. I'd love to see Groves to Gale 2 next year. Yeah. I mean, wouldn't that be an amazing fight? And you can just see the Cobra sitting there commenting on it with his Sky gig. You can just see him coming out of retirement, can't you, to face the winner of that one. Ruben, the way Groves fought changed instantly from Frotz Groves to his next fight. Yeah, I mean, arguably the loss had some effect. Anyway, there we are. Apologies, it was over 2 separate streams. We got there in the end. I'm going to try and upload these as 2 separate videos. I doubt it will let me do it as one. So, yeah, thanks to everyone who's bared with me. Thanks to everyone who's joined in. Was, Ruben, Tibertap, Niall, Richie, loads of others I'm sure who I haven't mentioned. But thanks very much all for joining in. Hope you all have a good Sunday evening, and look forward to speaking again soon. Thanks for watching.